Hello guys, welcome back to narsicloud.com. Today we're going to talk about the service called Route 53 in AWS. So Route 53 is a highly available and scalable domain name system service, which we call it as DNS service. So basically, it provides you the three types of functionalities. So one is to register your domains, and it will let your traffic to be routed to your resources, and also it will check for the health of your resources. So there are a lot of theory behind all of these three categories. So once we get into the details, internals of Route 53, we can go over that. But before we dive into Route 53, you guys must understand the concept of DNS and what really happens when we query for a website. When you type some the domain name in the web browser, what happens really behind the scenes? So you need to understand that, and then how Route 53 is helping to achieve that, and what AWS has done to make it more scalable and reliable, right? So first, let's start with to go over what is DNS and what is the flow that happens behind the scenes. Um, to save some time, I quickly drew some this diagram. So let's assume this scenario where you're querying for some website, right? Which we do in our daily life many times, right? So in this case, I am the client, and I am looking for narsicloud.com, which is my website, right? That's what I'm trying to query in my web browser. Um, so if I go to my browser, narsicloud.com. So what happened really there? We got our website. It's still building, but what happens? So anytime you query for something, in every situation, just the computers are involved, right? How could we talk to the computer without knowing their IP address? We cannot connect to any computer without any IP address. Every system has its own IP address, right? That's how we talk to. So in the real world, if you want to talk to some other person, we call with their name, right? Um, but in this case, to talk to any computer, IP address is a must. But if I want to talk to the narsicloud.com server, I don't know the IP address of that server. How do we remember? We cannot remember, right? As humans, we it's not readable, and we cannot remember those IP addresses. So what this world has come up with is there are many companies which maintains this lookup information. So since we don't know, we cannot remember that the IP address information, we need somebody to look up that info for us. So when I type www.narsicloud.com, something must be happening behind the scenes to which is looking for that IP address, and it's giving that back to me, and I am querying for um, that IP address, which will give us the website, right? Website response. So that should have happened. Otherwise, there is no way that we can get that information. So that's what happened here. I type the narsicloud.com in my web browser. First thing what happens is our client machine, it talks to DNS resolver, which you see here. So this DNS resolver, we usually call that as a resolver, recursive DNS resolver, which is usually maintained by our internet provider. So what happens is the client immediately asks DNS resolver, "Hey, I got this request for narsicloud.com. Can you give me the IP address?" what DNS resolver does is first it will check for that information in its local cache. So in its local cache, if there is a IP address mapping for that for the website address, it will return that IP address back to client. And what client does behind the scenes, it talks to the server. So it, since it knows the IP address now, it calls that mission with that IP address, and then it gets back that narsicloud.com response. That's how it happens. But assume that, why would the DNS resolver have that information in its cache? Because previously somebody would have requested for that information. Even if he requested of that information, it would have gotten that by some other means before, and as soon as it gets that, it will maintain that in its cache. So let's assume that for now that did not happen. Nobody has ever requested narsicloud.com. This is the very first time we are requesting for that. Now it asks DNS resolver, and DNS resolver says, oh no, I don't have that information. Let me get that information for you. So DNS resolver, the next request goes to root server. What is this root server? If you look up this domain name, the pattern if you look for is www.narsicloud.com. So the .com part, we call that as a top level domain. So what this root server does is it maintains the information of the top level domains. For example, we have .com, .r, .net, and .uk, all of those, right? And we have various types of TLDs. We usually call it as TLD, which is top level domain. And that .com, in this case, the .com information is maintained here. So these root servers is across the world. It's completely distributed system. We have root servers maintained by various companies across different parts of the world, so that anywhere in the world, anywhere from anywhere, anybody from anywhere can request for that information, and those requests can be routed to the nearest root servers. So in this case, DNS resolver is asking for, hey root server, what is the IP address for narsicloud.com? And root server checks, okay, so this is for .com. I don't have information for the for www.narsicloud.com, but I have the information for .com. So what it does is, okay, for .com, this is where you need to go. So these are the guys you can who can give the information for .com. So root server will return back with the server names, the server IP addresses, whatever, right? That information will be sent to resolver. And resolver, okay, so now I have the information who I can talk to get that the IP address of the whole domain. And this resolver will talk to the TLD server. So whatever that root server information, root server gave the information back. That information is about TLD servers, which is called top level domain servers. These top level domain servers, okay, so DNS resolver will ask, okay, TLD server, what is the IP address of narsicloud.com? And TLD server, I don't have the IP address of all that information, but I know who you can talk to. So the TLD servers will maintain the mapping between narsicloud.com and the domain's name servers. So how it would be? So it would be something like this. So narsicloud.com, it maintains the mapping of name servers, which would be ns1 dot blah 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 dot com, or the server names, right? Or ns2 dot blah blah blah. So it maintains the name servers mapping for narsicloud.com. Now what TLD server does is it will give this information. Okay, these are the name servers you can talk to, which will give you the IP address. So then it goes back to DNS resolver, and DNS resolver again create a new request for domain name server. So which is these for usually you get four types of name servers, unique name servers, which are so specific to narsicloud.com. So in this domain servers, it maintains information of the mapping between the domain and the real IP address. So when it asks for, hey, domain name server, what's the IP address of this narsicloud.com? Okay, you got to the right place. I have that information. Let me give that back to you. So it will send this IP address back to DNS resolver, and DNS resolver will send that back to the client. And the client behind the scenes, that's when it's going to call that web server with the IP address, and eventually you will get that nursery code website back. So which is what you got, right? So all this happens in a fraction of seconds. You wouldn't even notice that. First time when you request it, it has gone through all these steps, right? And now if I request for that information again, it doesn't go through all these processes, because each server maintains that information in the cache. And obviously in DNS resolver we have that information in its local cache, which is maintained for I think depending on the time that you configure. um, so that's maintained here, so it's returned immediately back to the client. So this all happens when you query for some website. So every day we search for google.com, we search for some other website, all this theory happens. So it always amazes me that what are all the things that keep working together to get something done, right? We never imagined that it's a big distributed system around the world. So assume that so many people, millions of people in the world requesting for information, how robust that should be, this infrastructure, right? Think about it. So we have dedicated companies, for example, Verizon, which maintains the root server infrastructure. So there are some communities which maintains all of that. It's a shared responsibility, right? Somebody should maintain them to make this happen. The whole internet happens. So this is the core concept of DNS registration. How does DNS resolving DNS works? Um, so first of all, okay, that is how that's a part of the resolving, right? But in the first place, we should register this domain, right? Um, any website, if you want to launch, you need to have a domain. So for that we need to register the domain. When the registration happens, um, for example, to register domain you need to go to the registrar. So Route 53 is one of the registrar, and we have other registrars like GoDaddy, and there are a lot of registrars. So what we do is we go to the registrar, and we purchase the domain name. So in this case I purchased this narsicloud.com. And when we do that, registrar, what they do, they create all these entries for us with a root server and the top level domain servers. And these domains, this mapping is maintained by registrars, right? um, Somebody should keep them updated to the root server. Otherwise, how does root server know where to go, and how does TLD server know where to go for these name servers, right? Whenever you register a new domain, these name servers will get created in the registrar system, and that will get updated to these two other servers. This is not a single server. This is distributed. Everything is distributed across the world. So depending on where your location and where you're requesting from, the request is routed to the nearest root server, and then from there it recursively figure out which servers it needs to talk to, and eventually it gets down to the final name server, which will give you the IP address. So so I hope this concept is clear for you, because this is you need to understand this before I talk about the Route 53 domain registration system. um, because Route 53 is DNS service where you register domain names, and you create these name servers, which we call that as hosted zones. I will talk about in the second part of this video. So meanwhile, please go through this basics of DNS registration system, and we'll go deep into Route 53 in our next video. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you like this video, please click on like button, and please do subscribe. I will keep posting videos on AWS and other technologies as well, and various cloud systems. Okay, see you guys later. Thank you. Bye.